crossover.
And
You know,
man, 50
the CEO,
grand.
pro CEO.
Hey, well, I got to give it up. My man, 50 grand all the way from the boom, 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 boom.
Brooklyn's in the house. No doubt. Yes,
So,
sir. So how's it been going, man?
Man, we just are continuing to grow in the midst of the situation. As you all know what's going on. I don't have to tell anybody. The pandemic is still in full effect. The annals of history will tell time that this was an epic period in our nation. It's not, the world's history. It is world history now. And we're literally living through it. So I will tell you, as of right now, today, we standing strong. And we're doing the best we can, how we know how. And we're going to continue to fight the good fight and help everybody we can in the process.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, we have, in the sports world, in the music world, everybody's, is kind of IG Live. Everybody's on IG Live.
It is. IG has become like literally the competitors, the digital battlegrounds, right?
I'm telling you, man, it's pretty serious, man. It's hard to compete on IG Live, boy. Everybody.
Well, which one are you referring to? Because there are so many to choose from. Which
you got Jopra. You have. This past weekend
down for the audience. Jopra. What do you mean by that?
Jopra.
Okay.
Hip hop artist Fat Joe, Jose Cartagena. He got his show that comes on at about 8:00 on IG Live. I love it. He's bringing in a lot of artists that he's worked with or toured with or whatever case may be. And then you got Swiss Beats. You got LL Cool J Rock the Bells. You got, the list goes on. Of course, you got D Nice. Last week he had D Nice with Scratch Vision, DJ Scratch. Oh my gosh! And he gave me a verbal commitment. He's gonna come on the show, but he's working on a couple of projects. Once those projects come in,
who is that? D Nice. Or who you talking about?
DJ Scratch.
Oh, DJ Scratch. Okay, we'd love to have him, man. So yes.
Yeah. So DJ Scratch, and it was DJ Scratch and not Pastanews, Maceo, DJ Maceo.
Okay.
De La Soul on Friday night. They had Rock the Bell. Rock the House. It was awesome. They killed it. And D Nice has been he was in Florida this past weekend.
Oh really?
For like a drive.
In my neck of the woods, man. I ain't hear nothing. He was hit with
who? He was in South Florida. He was in South Florida for a graduation.
Oh,
so
wow.
he was kind of doing his thing, man, and he's traveling with the mask on, and and he just won himself a Webby.
Is that right? Oh man.
Yeah.
Okay. Congrats. Shout out.
Guess who's the person that announced the Webby Award for him?
Michelle Obama. Well, hey, they tight, right? He's the official DJ. Come on.
The official DJ. So she gave it to him, which is nice.
Yeah, absolutely.
No pun intended, right?
No, right, absolutely.
And obviously, the music business is still reeling from, the passing of Audrey Harrell, but the tributes have been crazy. Braylon, Jamie Foxx, and Teddy did a tribute this past Sunday, which was beautiful. And this past weekend we had Versus with Timbaland and K Swiss. K Swiss. Swiss Beats' show, which they featured Nelly and Nelly and Ludacris. And
Luda.
What I think I found very funny is, they called him was it Teddy Nelly or something like that?
Oh no, I didn't see it, man. You have to tell me about it.
Because he was having some technical issues, and
Nelly?
And they got those Teddy Riley flashbacks. So it was pretty funny.
Oh man. Hey, what I will say about people is you give them an inch, they will take a mile. People will start slicing and dicing and putting you in the meme quantum universe, and you end up having issues the rest of your social media life. Think about the Jordan meme of him crying. You know, that's a huge one, and we continue to see that one. So, nah, man, that's totally funny. I'm thinking, you know, for the most part, people are generally wanting to just have a little fun, not really hurt anybody's feelings. They use it as a means to communicate as well as be creative and use their sort of creative ingenuity using technology to make it happen. So no, man, we get it. We see. It looks like you're on the phone, man. So where we at with the other thing? The thing I think would be interesting to talk about is the Last Dance. Not sure you want to give a little feedback on that, but I thought overall, in terms of sports docu series, probably in the last, I don't know, 10 years, I don't think there's been a docu-series that's gotten this much attention, obviously, because we're all in the midst of COVID. But nonetheless, this thing has been out, you know, for close to 20 years almost, and people have been dying to see it, and now they finally see it. So what's your feedback on The Last Dance, man? Did you catch any of it? Give us some.
Oh, man, The Last Dance, man. You know, I think that my favorite part of The Last Dance is Jordan's reactions.
Oh, just overall, his reactions.
They're classic. I mean, they're just classic. Those reactions are just off the chain. And so I'll give you a good example. You know, I love towards the end when he said, so do you know the reason why Jerry Reinsdorf closed the team? He's like, Jordan was like, yeah, I'm curious. I want it. Yeah, let me see it. And then he watched it, and then he had this face. Like, and then he took the iPad and he just gave it back, like, whatever, dude. Right. He's like, and then he said, listen, if he really wanted to keep the team, we all would have signed for a 1-year contract to try to get a 7th championship. He said, you know, they would have to do some renegotiating with what's his name, with Pippen, but he's pretty sure that Pippen would have done the deal, right?
They would have made it work.
He would have made it work, and then, you know, I totally forgot that your boy Rodman went to WWE during the playoffs, during the finals, actually, which was pretty remarkable. I mean, that guy is something else. Well, but you know what? You cannot take away his commitment to everything. Hold on. No. Let me get this.
Okay. Well, let me say this, that in terms of how people, and I can only speak for myself, you know, I didn't watch them all, but I will say the reactions every week were so well followed, and there was so much content that came out in the post of every one of these. Every week there was a really unique interview from somebody who was talked about on The Last Dance. So you saw week after week, you had people come on and give their perspective. You know, when Scotty first, you know, it was found out his money potential. Well, it was said his money wasn't right, and Scotty should have got paid more money. That was a huge discussion point. A lot of people felt that maybe he could have gotten paid way more than he got. So that was a huge issue. Then the next week, Isaiah didn't get picked. Oh my gosh. Why did Isaiah? Because they walked off and then, shake their hands. So that was bad blood and that spilled all the way to the Olympic team years later, man. So, then, the following week is, players, Gary Payton saying, he wasn't scared of Jordan, and all that. He gave it to Jordan, which he did. I would say 35 is respectable against the GOAT,
Right.
For sure. And it just seemed like it generated so much commentary. One of the things I would have just liked to see is, the fact that it was, this would have been better around NBA season, if the NBA season would have been going on, because the players would have been, really been able to hear in real time, and maybe even you could have saw some of the moves emulated on the court at the same time,
Yeah, that you know what? Because it's funny you mention that, because in growing up and you're watching, you're watching the playoffs, and then you go play outside, and you're trying to emulate those same moves, and you're like, you're doing the triple threat. You're just
right.
You're looking to try to dunk it on somebody with ferocity. I mean, you are absolutely right. Seeing those highlights and those flashbacks of Jordan at his prime, and just like you said, when Jordan first got into the league, he was a skinny guy, right? And he was getting beat up, but he had so much skills that he was just unbelievable and athletic. But then when he started hitting that weight room,
yeah. Well, he skilled up, because he saw every year he needed to come back and be that much better and better, and then he just took it to a whole nother level, man. So I think we're good now. I think we have our esteemed guests in the building.
Let's see. Yes, we do.
You want to do the introductions, Mr. Co-host? Let's go.
Absolutely. Because I mean, we're in for a treat. I'm telling you right now.
All right. I got my seatbelt on.
I don't know anything about sports, guys, except for. But I do know. Well, I know how to box, but I don't know about boxing.
Oh,
it's all good, Tracy, because what you do know is unbelievable, and you're the future.
All
right. So in every single week we have a theme when it comes down to power moves, and it is predicated around my partner in crime, Kevin Carr, with Pro to CEO, and he has what's called the 9 medallions, and the 9 medallions kind of represents champion, CHAMPIONS. And this week we believe that the I is dedicated for you for ingenuity. And this is the reason why. She's the CEO and founder of TMRW Corporation, EIC of Interactive TV Today, which she founded in early 1998. She's also the co-executive producer of the TV of Tomorrow show. And she does conferences held online and in real life in San Francisco and New York. So ITVT, the company's free email newsletter, is read by thousands of executives and individuals around the world interested in the future of multi-platform and interactive television.
You were so hired.
Prior to finding ITVT, she was chief evangelist at egroups.com, now Yahoo Groups. She's new media editor at PC World, a producer for Telemorphics, a pioneering interactive TV company, a video producer at Steve Mike Mickelson's Productions in San Francisco. She's a writer for the New York Times on technology, the San Francisco Chronicle, and others. She's created TV and broadband categories for the Webby Awards, which we just talked about. Our boy D Nice won himself a Webby. And she's also has experience in voiceovers, participated in playwright workshops in New York City. She's worked with George Coates in conceiving, producing, and directing 3 interactive fashion shows on the Black Rock Desert. She's also directed an episode of The Twilight Zone called The Obsolete Man. So,
wow.
I mean, and the
That was a
list goes
play
on and on.
version.
But I just want to say she's a PhD. She's a professor.
I'm not quite a PhD. I had a fellowship PhD. I have a master's degree. And then because the virtual reality industry was like cooking at the time when I was doing my PhD, I sort of said, okay, I'm done with the PhD. I'm going to do VR now. That was in the early 90s.
Oh, wow.
So you know what? Guess what? Let's welcome to our show Miss Tracy Swedlow, because she got the knowledge of what's happening in San Francisco, Silicon Valley, and what's going to happen in entertainment. So I'm so excited to have you on the show, Tracy. Thank you for gracing us the power move.
You're a great introducer.
Well, welcome.
Wow.
Thank you.
Welcome to the
Thank
show.
you
Welcome to the
Thanks
show.
to both of you.
Yeah, what an impressive bio. And I can't wait to hear of your business success and business model, how you do what you do, how you're a leader in the interactive internet space. So could you share, just to get us started, get us warmed up, share us your story and how you came to be?
Wow. I don't often get to really talk about myself because I'm often interviewing everybody else. So thank you for the opportunity.
That's right.
That's what we do. Power moving.
Power. Gosh, where do I start? I mean, right now we communicate to and organize what's called the multi-platform television community, and that includes interactive TV and VR and all the kind of content that you might see on Netflix and Hulu and TiVo and Apple TV. So that's what I do all day, every day. We produce these conferences. In fact, we're about to announce a virtual conference, because of what we're going through. We can't get together. But how I got here is a strange, story that kind of goes like this, because like a lot of people, I got a theater major, right? There's not a lot you can do with a theater major unless you really go into theater. But I was always in love with storytelling and filmmaking and movies and all of this kind of stuff. And I always knew I wanted to be part of a dynamic community that was changing the media landscape for everybody. I wanted to be part of improving the world in some way, right? So I've always loved television. I used to steal my mother's little black and white TV and bring it into my bedroom at night, and sit it like on a chair and cover it with a blanket and watch these late night shows. So I always knew that something was going to happen in that direction, but I didn't quite know how.
All right, so Tracy, but how did you bring the TV back?
Okay. Well, how did I what?
How did you bring the TV back after you stole it from your mom? How did you bring it back to your mom without her knowing?
I don't know, actually. I think I just secretly would just put it back. She'd get into her office later in the day or something. Who knows? That's a good question. I don't think anybody's ever asked me that question. She was fooling around with CompuServe. I don't know if you remember CompuServe. Remember when that old email newsletter email?
Yes.
Anyway, long story short, I did all these degrees in directing. I went to England. I did a degree in English there, but I finished it in the States in drama, and I studied all kinds of theater stuff and filmmaking in New York City, in post-production film editing in the feature film business, and learned a lot. And I was there at the time when film was changing from just celluloid into digital. So I really kind of witnessed a very professional environment. I was a peon. I was a real peon, but I was witnessing this incredibly exciting moment when these famous people would come in and they'd be editing, and long story short. And then I did my graduate degree in directing. Then I came out to California towards my towards a PhD, but then the internet was starting, right? And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
oh my God, this is amazing. I can't just let this pass me by, right?
Right.
Because, like you knew that if you weren't part of it then, you were going to not be part of it at all. I mean, and I wanted to get in on the ground floor. So I actually dropped out of my PhD program, which was in chaos anyway. They eventually fell apart. It was too much detail, guys. But, and then I was working in post-production post-production video, and I got involved with the VR community early on in the early 90s when it first started. And it was a heady time in San Francisco and in Silicon Valley and in LA. It was like this mix of people who really wanted to change the world and who wanted to communicate about digital identity and all of these ideas like cyber this and cyber that. It was all new, right? And so it was very exciting to be here. It was kind of like being in the right place at the right time when the culture was changing. It was kind of like being in Seattle during grunge or something, or in New York City in the 50s and 60s when you have all the beats and like where the scene was happening, right? And
right.
You could tell. And we got very involved with the Burning Man, the early Burning Man community, in the early 90s when it was just starting. So I was part of the tech and the sort of arts community and an early theater community. So much metadata. I mean, meta here, guys. But anyway, and then, the recession happened and, you got to like survive. So the thing is here was my power move. This is my power move right here. Mm-hmm. Is I had to try to get a job, and it was very hard in George Bush Senior's environment, right, where all these recessions were going on,
right?
And it was very hard to get a job, and so like a lot of people, I was just like drawing and being a slacker in the coffee shops and stuff, like for about a year. But then I started applying for jobs in Silicon Valley, and I figured out that my power move would be to translate all of this experience as a director and a producer in theater and film and TV into the language that the Silicon Valley would understand. And that's when I started getting jobs. And so what I learned to do was, as a director or as a producer in theater or anything, right? You know how to organize people, you know how to speak their vocabularies, you know how to go from beginning of a project to the end of a project, you know how to carry through something, right? And so you mm-hmm. start learning those kinds of ways of expressing yourself and your background. And then I translated a theater degree and a master's degree into real work in Silicon Valley. And I started getting work in Apple and eventually PC World and all of these other things. But San Francisco in that time in Silicon Valley was percolating with interesting people and new ideas and people trying to invent digital TV. And I just tried to be sort of one step ahead and be in on all the new stuff. And I just sort of started meeting lots of people who led me to get in. Like I covered the very first virtual reality wedding, which cost $1 million.
Wow.
And the people who paid for that, it was here in San Francisco, were like Silicon Graphics and maybe Apple or whoever was around. They contributed a lot of money, and it was two people getting married with these virtual headsets, right? And we all just watched them get married, and then watched on a big TV what they saw in their headsets, and they had selected the graphics they wanted. Like it was a little cliche. It was like a woman coming in on a horse, and it was just it was cliche, but it's what they wanted. So. And there was like 300 people in the room maybe, but it was pretty exciting. Anyway, it was that kind of atmosphere in which you could reinvent yourself here in San Francisco. And I eventually figured out that VR wasn't going to go anywhere. It's several years down the road because there wasn't a commercial viability for these systems that were very expensive. And so I got involved in TV and try to get to the end of the story here, which is I worked at all these publications, wrote for the New York Times, I actually wrote about online memorials, which were just starting in the early 90s, in the mid 90s, when people would pass away, and they were just starting then. And privacy, I won a bunch of awards for multimedia discs I produced. So it's kind of like you had to kind of teach yourself on the job. I never trained to be a journalist. You know, I was a director, producer, actor type. So it's kind of like you had to train on the job here and reinvent yourself. And that's what everything is about out here, right? In San Francisco, you always are reinventing
right,
yourself.
So pause right there, Tracy, because you dropping a whole bunch of jewels, right, Kevin?
Yeah, no doubt.
You dropping. So you know what? Let me rewind a little bit and let's take a deep breath, because at this present time,
talked a lot.
At this present time, how are you doing with this whole COVID situation? And how's your family and things of that nature? That's
very nice. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm making the most. I'm making the most of being. We gotta get on break at 8:30. All right, cool. I'm making the most of this situation. You know, social distancing. You know, I'm not gaining any more weight, which is good. I'm staying focused. So family's doing well. So we everything is good. Thank you for asking.
No problem. And you, Kevin, you okay?
Absolutely. We have everything. We've been very fortunate to having incidents of health in my immediate or, extended family, but we're following all the guidelines, everything we can.
Oh, you got toilet? Did you get toilet tissue?
Plenty. Plenty.
Wow. I need your source.
Yes.
We're doing great. We actually haven't left this house since early March. We have a little backyard here in San Francisco, so I feel fortunate about that. We haven't left because probably underlying conditions issues, and that's it. We're happy clams. I mean, I work like this all the time. I mean, what I'm doing is I'm doing all these televisionation interviews with people in my industry. So I'm interviewing like 2 or 3 people a day, like you're doing. But I'm interviewing people about what they're doing, how they're surviving in their business, and to keep our community visible, connected, and feel like they're out there. So I'm trying to be proactive like you are.
Awesome. Well, this is great. So, man, we have about 2 minutes before we go on break, but I think one of the things I want to talk about, what you just said, the importance of reinventing yourself and taking your strengths, such as, you went to drama, you got a drama degree, you're a director. And what you did was, instead of just settling for a regular job, you created your opportunity for success and exposure. So that's, like you said, that's a major power move. What do you think, Kevin?
What I'm also really curious about is when people are in industry like technology like this, what's the move that people are having to make? I just got emails from people in technology saying, hey, my job has been cut. Now I've got to make a move. I'm not sure what industry to go into. So these are things that, when I am the work that I do, helping people go and look for opportunities, I'd love to hear when we come back, what are the new industries? Where are the opportunities, even in the midst of thinking about what COVID is doing to everybody's business? There, on the other side of this, there could be a silver lining, and maybe it's not right in front of us, but maybe it's about people going back and retooling themselves and figuring out, what they didn't have time for. Maybe they've got time now to do and to be, on top of their game. So we'll be back. You stay right there, and we're going to allow you to answer all that and more.
All right, so we're going to go on break. This is Power Move. Everybody needs themselves.
To reality radio, everyone is a star.
I know that's right.
On your smooth soul and R&B station. On the World Wide Web.
Access granted.
In Touch Radio.
The Storks are bringing me a baby brother. We can do this together.
All right, let's go.
Storks know how to keep kids safe. Do you?
What?
Oh my gosh, you don't know.
I I know.
You don't? Oh, man, you laugh when you're uncomfortable.
No.
Making sure your child is in the right car seat is one of the steps to safer travel.
I will rock this!
You will rock this.
To know for sure that your child is in the right car seat for their age and size, visit safercar.gov/the right seat.
Cool. Very cool.
Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
It's important to plan ahead for emergencies, like the storm. When it kicked in, we had a plan.
Separated.
We were able to get in touch with each other in no time.
Idea how to find each other.
The whole experience was
the
fine.
most frightening 10 hours of my life.
If there's one piece of advice I'd offer other moms out there, it's to stay calm and keep to the plan.
Some parents plan ahead, some don't. Make sure you know where to find your family in an emergency. Start your plan at ready.gov. Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
When it comes to reality radio, everyone is a star.
I know that's right.
On your smooth soul and R&B station. On the World Wide Web.
Access granted.
In Touch Radio.
All right. Yeah, so Kevin, kind of reiterate that question again, because I like the way you're thinking, because I'm curious about that too.
Yeah, so Tracy, the work that I do is in the transition space, helping people find what they want to do when they have to deal with change, challenge, competition, success, and failure. And right now, because of the health crisis, it's hurting a lot of businesses. Our country and the global economy of scale has, been cut down to, minimals, and the most essential businesses, or the businesses who were the most robust, are right now able to sustain themselves, and the federal government is doing everything it can in terms of infusing and trying to help people get through this rough period. With that being said, I'm curious, or I'm interested in hearing from you, when people are looking in an industry like yours and maybe they've never been pressured to think differently now because of what has happened. Maybe we can help them, and maybe you can help our audience by telling them what's the growth opportunity in regards of dealing with this transition personally, and then what in regards to growth, where the money in your industry in terms of the new opportunities exist. So maybe you can answer that for us. Hello. You're on mute.
I'm here. I'm sorry, Ray. I'm sorry, I had to unmute myself. That's a really good critical question, and so much to say. So everybody in my industry right now, for example, is facing the same situation, and a lot of them still have jobs, but they're having to redefine what their priorities are. Especially the businesses are finding that they have to go back to other projects that they put aside and put those projects back up to the top. So there's a lot of acceleration going on. There's a lot of innovation going on. I know for my own self that because I produce events and that was wiped out, right? I had to rethink what I'm going to do. So we had to make the big decision about pivoting to a virtual event. And of course, everybody had to do that too, but I had to ramp up in those first 3 weeks. We're 3 months into this now. So the first 3-4 weeks, March, I was on fire. I was having to think, okay, what are we going to do? What platforms do I have to learn? I have to watch all these webinars. I have to try all of the platforms. I have to go to everybody, sign in. And it was like I was having a lot of adrenaline. I could barely sleep because I knew I had to think fast. So if you haven't already gone through that, then I would say if you're looking at our industry, in the TV industry, doing what I'm doing, which is, transforming yourself to a video property online, like you're doing, you're interviewing people. I've had to up my game to do interviews so I could start to get ready to produce a live virtual event. So that's why I started producing my televisionation shows, my interview shows. I upped my game. I learned how to do video editing. I figured out which platform to buy. how to make it look HD. So it's like you have to make some critical decisions. But in the industry itself, I would say what's really growing, where the opportunities are, it's content generation. Content is king, queen, jack, ace, the whole deck, right? And it's not even necessarily technology right now. There are so many outlets for content, and these guys can't produce new content as easily as they can. And they're starting to invent new formats. We're starting to see people experimenting with Zoom, like having actors acting from their home as the character on their series, like on, I think it was a CBS show or an NBC show, where they stayed in character in their homes. But then you have people doing, I just saw this fantastic video. Do you know who Todrick Hall is? Does that ring a bell?
Todrick Hall?
No.
Todrick Hall. He's a gay, he has this fantastic song called Nails, Hip, Heels. I don't know, but he just got all his friends to videotape themselves and choreograph them, and somebody edited it all together into a home, but like video, from everybody's home, but it's been choreographed and everybody's dancing to the song, which he adapted for the times. It's called like mask, scrubs, gloves. I can't remember, but it's fantastic. I highly recommend checking out Todrick Hall. But anyway, I would say that in our industry, though, the big opportunities are figuring out content. But the key thing is, how do you get that content distributed? How do you know who's in the industry and who does what? I mean, that's what we do. And of course, I recommend everybody to check out our email newsletter. It's free. Check out our Television Nation shows, because we will tell you all the time who's doing what, who are the smart people, what's the inside information. I would also say, completely outside of my particular industry, that if you really want to find opportunities for growth, the space industry, it's going to explode. Mm-hmm. It's absolutely going to explode. So I would say television, stable content, become a creator, or space.
I love what you just said about the fact that, you got to learn to be a creator. But one of the things that I picked up from you, and I want to underscore and accentuate, is, with your platform, you have access, and this is kind of like the power segment right here. I want to jump into. You have access to all the top executives in, whether it's Hollywood, whether it's TV, whether it's distribution networks. How did you do that?
Well, I started an email newsletter. Here's another power move. So, I mean, you call your show power move. At the time, I just felt like it was survival, right? And it was like, how do I keep myself relevant? So I was, I think I was out of work again, because the 90s were, there's a lot of ups and downs and recessions and things like this. And I said to myself in 97, I said, I want to keep relevant. I want to know about the TV industry. There doesn't seem to be enough information on the web, which was still nascent at the time, about what's happening in interactive TV and digital TV. So you know what? I think I'll make it come to me, and I will create an email newsletter, and therefore have to go out and find that information. And so what I did is I started my first issue. I researched some news stories out there, and then I literally went and called some of the companies I was covering on the phone, and I just spoke to anybody. I just randomly had them send me to anybody. And I said, hi, I'm starting this email newsletter, and would you like to be subscribed to it? It does this, A, B, C, and D, and it's free. And most of the time, the person would say, sure, put me on. And I gathered literally about 10, 15 names. And I did this over the course of a couple of days, or I don't remember actually, but a very short period of time. And I subscribed them to my newsletter, and bang, because in these email newsletters, and that's been the ticket to my success, really, it allows you to have a subscription, automatic subscription at the bottom, right? Then you can forward it to other people and they can subscribe, and it grew virally, right? Because I was the only one putting out that information. And it wasn't even very pretty. My formatting was crap. I mean, there wasn't the tools. The tools were not there, you know.
Right.
It was very text heavy. But anyway, and it's taken me all this time to evolve to what we have today, which I think looks pretty nice. But I literally was looking at how many issues we've produced over these years. We've produced 40 issues of 100, 40 volumes of 100 issues plus 45. So how much is that?
Wow.
It's like
4,000.
4,045.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, because
Good
we're
stuff.
at 40, 45. So that's, if I hadn't started that email newsletter, I would never have realized many years later that the TV industry needed an event that organized all of the technologies into one place, because at the time there was only cable, satellite, mobile, and early internet stuff. You know, all these events were like siloed. And I said, well, we need a show that organizes everybody together in one place. So that's how I started the TV of Tomorrow show.
Wow. So I'm super curious because I assist pro athletes who are looking for opportunities that can blossom. How would you suggest and recommend someone who has a platform, celebrity, artist, particularly, and they've got to leave that platform now, and they have a little bit of a brand, they have a little bit of access because they know people, they have exposure, and they're been able to generate first career success, but maybe not the second one. What do you advise them to be doing with this opportunity that they're leaving and going into, particularly some of the things you just suggested?
I have a very good recommendation. There's a company called Whistle, and I actually did an interview with them. You'd have to go to my Television Nation page on our website.
Plug.
Tell us what it is.
The TV of Tomorrow show.com/Television Nation. And we interviewed, I think he's SVP. I mean, I could screen share it, but, they are actually very interested in original sports programming right now, and sports, athletes, people who've got a platform, and they will organize that content and distribute that content for you. And they're also being very creative about like doing game. I mean, like I think he had like doing like drinking games between two sports guys, where they're interested in original content while we're in our homes. And then they will organize that stuff into short form content. And they're interested in all kinds of content. I'd check out Whistle.
Well, I'm going to talk to you about that after the show. I love these suggestions.
Okay.
We'll revisit on that. Absolutely.
Okay. Sounds good. Sounds good.
You look good. Like we making deals happen here.
We power moving right here in real time. So
real time. And that was a great question, Kevin, because it shows your concern for your clients, but at the same time, being able to think outside the box and having great great guests like Tracy is proving to be very valuable, right? So I was
going to find you the interview. I'm going to find you the interview. Well, we can do it after the show.
Okay.
Absolutely. Okay. And you could put the link right on the Zoom and we'll coordinate afterwards. But what I love about your hustle though, your hustle is real.
Thanks.
It's funny because a lot of times creative people, and explain how did you do this, because that's a power move in of itself. A lot of times creative people like to stay in their lane and being creative. I can't, trust me, in working with plenty of producers and artists, and I'm like, bruh, you need to start DJing to hustle up your money. You see what Jermaine Dupri did. You see what all these people doing that were producers, and then they're DJing to keep themselves relevant. And some listen, to me, some didn't, right? And they were like, listen, that messes up my vibe. I can't smoke weed if I'm doing it. So how did you actually, you're a very brilliant and creative person, but yet you got you definitely matched up your your left brain with your right brain, and you've been able to be nimble and switch just like an athlete does, right? How did you develop that skill?
I think since I was a little girl, I had various difficult circumstances when I was growing up. I learned how to adapt and to survive, and that is the key. I mean, you have to be willing not to give up on yourself and keep trying new things. I don't know. I don't think I developed the skill. I just had the ability to say, I can do it. And the other thing, here's another example, a specific example, which is I've made an art car. Okay. I made an art car in the 90s. So I have a car that is covered with marbles and silver spikes. And I've got, weird things on the inside, and it was for fun. It's a long story why I did that. But I remember and this is sort of what you have to do in life, right? I remember I sketched for months, and like, oh, I'll do this, I'll do that, but nothing, I wasn't happy with it. And then I said, all right, screw it. And I went over to the car, I took 3 marbles and I just glued them anywhere. I glued them on the edge of the car. It's kind of like, it's very much the same philosophy in these early days of Silicon Valley. You just have to put something out there. You have to not be afraid to fail. And that is also training that you get as an actor, which is how I started to train. That's how you have to train as a director. You have to be willing, or even a painter or any kind of creative person has to be willing to fail and to try. And because you won't learn if you don't take that baby step. You must take baby steps. And that's the skill. So it's not even really a skill. It's just that tiny bit of courage it requires to just dip your toe in. And then, you find out it's okay. You can do it. It's kind of like a manuscript when you're writing a book or something like that. Like I actually just launched a book of poetry in the last few days on Amazon. And, it was my first one. Mm-hmm. And the thing is you start the poems, you started decades before, and you gather little by little, you got to take those baby steps, right? But you have to trust yourself that it's worth it. You have to.
I like what you're saying.
Yeah. Wow. So let's jump into the respect segment, Kevin.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're gonna jump into the respect segment because she's dropping it.
Yeah,
time is short, guys. Time is short. Time is short. Get it done. Get it done.
What did you do? This is a great question coming here, and I really want you to be transparent because we have a lot of people who listen, particularly women, to this audience. And what did you do to earn respect in a male-dominated industry? A lot of what we see, technology is not easy. My mom was the first woman of color in building, construction, maintenance for Walt Disney World back in the late 70s.
Wow.
When you talk about breaking somewhat barriers, I'm sure you can relate to that. So what do you say?
I wasn't building amazing stuff like that, but I think you have to have a commitment to putting out as high quality, content in my case as possible. I also think that people, they feel like we know what we're doing here, but you have to show that you like people, that you are interested in them. And then I think that they respect you because they feel more relaxed. I think that gaining respect is also about gaining their trust. It's not just about the quality of work you do. It's about showing them that you're there for them, that you're interested in them. I'm not sure that answers your question, but I do like people. I do want to make sure they feel comfortable. What
do you think attracts the right people to you based on your success? How have you been able to get people to buy into what you do? Like that's a respect and power move as well.
You ask really great questions, by the way. Thank you.
No, it's our lead co-host who's creative in the question gifting. So he gifts me, and I just kind of do a little sauce mixing, and that's about it.
I throw you the alley-oop. So you can just.
By the way, I want to answer something just to step back, which is I used to work at PC World magazine, and I was the new media editor there, and I was winning awards, but there were guys who were the writers, and they got a lot more opportunities than I did, even though I was winning awards. And I started saying to myself, this isn't right, you know. And I remember this woman who I interviewed, who was an installation artist, right? And she was doing some new media thing, and that was my job to cover new media stuff. And she said to me, it wasn't until I stood out from all of that and I put my name on it. When I put my name on it, that's when you get the respect. So when I started my email newsletter, I called it Tracy Swedlow's ITVT newsletter. And you have to own your product, whether you're female or male. And then if you take responsibility for the thing you've put out with your name on it, that's the first thing you have to do. You have to have a logo. You have to have your name. You got to do something.
And then you putting the power moves out. I love that. Keep going.
That's right. That's awesome.
But as far as how do I, you think your question was, how do I have access to?
Yeah.
Sorry, what was the second question?
The thought we had was, you certainly are putting, a lot of great opportunities have come your way, but what attracts the right people to you? Because you've been able to do this work, but not everybody is gifted to have people who want to support you and then be a cheerleader and support you. So how do you attract the right people to you too?
Well, it does take work, right? It does take building a track record, right? I also do a lot of emails. I write to all of these executives. I collaborate with my husband. It's not just me, right? My good husband here, who you can't see, Richard Washburn, we are a mom and pop, right? So we work together, and I'm the front person. He's back here, but we work very hard to communicate in email, on the phone, exactly what we're all about. And it takes a lot of effort. And so people start to trust you, and then they'll get recommended to come to your conference. Like I just interviewed somebody today, and he said, someone had recommended me to come to your show. And then I said, okay, fine, I'll go and check it out. And then they went, and they was like, wow, it was a great experience. So it's word of mouth, building up that trust from the track record, putting content out consistently, in my case, right? It just takes effort.
That's amazing. Well, so Tracy, tell us, because we're running up and closing the show soon, and I want to do a couple of kind of recaps. Kevin, I'm going to buy you some time so you can kind of give us some three bullet points that you like to kind of say, or takeaways you got from our distinguished guest Tracy here. Could you share with us what's next? Tell us about the virtual conference. Can our guests, get tickets to the conference? This is your time for your commercial. More plug.
More plugs. I mean, it's not like I'm trying to plug, but it's what I do every day, right? So, although I did plug my poem.
No, but we want you to plug. Here at Power Move, we want you to plug. Don't be ashamed to plug.
Yeah. Here's my philosophy, by the way.
Do one thing every day that scares you. All right.
Okay. The virtual conference, we haven't announced it yet. It's going to be announced next week. Okay. We will announce the dates in that announcement, so I can't tell you the dates yet. Anybody can attend it. We are still deciding what price to put it at, but it will be very affordable. This will be an incredible opportunity to schmooze, be involved, watch, absorb the working professional multi-platform TV industry. You're going to be able to network with these people, watch the content, watch the fireside chats. It's going to be a bigger opportunity for more people than ever before, because our tickets in real life event are usually up to about $1,275, right? Because but in this virtual environment, you have to make it more affordable for people. And we're actually pretty excited that we might get people from all over the world who have never been able to come to the event.
Right.
And we want a much more interesting, dynamic group of people who are going to be able to learn from this community. And so we're going to price it, incredibly well. I think it's going to be an opportunity. So that's what's next. Absolutely. And we're going to have networking parties, and there's going to be we're going to do that 5-minute mashup thing that you and I did, which is how I met you.
That's right.
Absolutely.
That's right.
That was great. We're going to use that. And we're going to have
if you need a DJ for your cocktail party, I got one for you.
We might have to do that because I suck at playing music around here. I don't even know what I'm doing. I just, maybe let's talk offline.
We'll talk offline.
All right. A couple things to talk offline.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So that's what's coming up.
Kev, so what are your takeaways from our engaging conversation with the beautiful and ingenious Tracy Swedlow? I mean,
you guys, my brain is exploding.
Yeah, so kudos to you. You give a lot of credibility to your experiences, your background, and you really you even acknowledge your husband. So I love the fact that you don't act like you know it all and you just did it all. You're gracious with with what you do, and I think that's the humility that you have in you. So I love that. Second thing is,
but I do have a team. I have a team that helps me produce events. Also, but they're spread all over the United States, and then we usually come together for these physical events. So we're going to have to reinvent ourselves. So anyway,
that's the other thing is the ingenuity. I love that you brought that today. You are what I call a pioneer. You use your positive.
Your mom's a pioneer.
Yeah,
your mom's a pioneer.
I'll let her know that when I talk to her. But you use your positive mental capacity to expand, and you're a continuous learner, and you have what I call a pivot game. Meaning you know how to pivot and transition and move to the next. The last thing I just love is your ability to innovate, meaning that you are sharing your resources, and you've enlightened us to a degree, and we really appreciate what that kind of means for our audience who goes back and listens, and they'll be able to walk away from this with a few more pieces and tools in their tool chest to learn from. So that's what I got out today, man. I think if our audience can pull a few of those things out, they would be they would benefit greatly. What about you, Joel?
Well, we only got a couple of minutes left, and it's all about the plug.
Yeah, so, give it a plug, man.
So I want to say, how do people get in contact with you, Tracy? What's your website, your social media platforms? Hit us with the commercial, baby. Close us out.
Television Nation. We do video podcasts. You can go to the tvoftomorrowshow.com or tvotshow.com, and then check out the button to subscribe to our email newsletter, which will ping you every time something comes out to keep you incommunicado with the whole community. So subscribe at itvt.com/subscribe. Or write me, Tracy Swedlow at gmail.com, and I'll tell you everything that's going on.
Awesome. Well, once again, this was a phenomenal show. Like always, this is Power Moves, where celebrities, athletes, key influential executives share how they make money, how they attract
You guys
power,
are great. You guys are so good.
Earn respect. We appreciate you, and thank you for your time. We got to follow up with you, so don't go away.
Okay. I really enjoyed this. You guys are great. What a team.
All right. Thank you.
Awesome.
We appreciate it.
All right.